Semitic Magic, Its Origins and Development by R. Campbell Thompson. I'm not sure if it's a mostly Jewish name, but we're definitely seeing indications of that. It is supposed that the spirit comes to wash there. As soon as the death of has clearly occurred, all water in the house is poured out, and all the looking glasses are turned to the wall, lest the spirit see itself reflected in the glass. The sphere of reflection is shown among people who claim to be Shia. If they gaze into a looking glass before saying their prayers, they will be guilty of worshipping their own likeness. But this is a superstition that has nothing to do with Islam. Now, in the Bible, it says that God created in a likeness. It doesn't say that things are like God. It says that the creation was in a likeness. So, in a reflection, the qualities of creation reflect the qualities of God. That sort of statement, which is why dark pools and mirrors and stuff were used in various rites, and some people, to disassociate from these rituals, would not gaze into reflective surfaces and that, or whatever. This superstition of water may be connected with the idea in Numbers 19:15. Every open vessel which has no covering bound upon it is unclean when a man dies in a tent. And there is a lot of truth to that one. We find that certain substances or surfaces carry disease more. And we find that, like for example, 6 feet social distancing, that's a lie. If they were really concerned about this virus, they would say what's been found out and what's been known for months. They would say 13 feet. But they're not so concerned. It's only hurting the people with organ damages and terminal patients and HIV patients and stuff like this that could have died from an average cold or flu anyways. Now that's not saying you don't want to keep it spreading from to and fro, but it makes you think. It seems to have been an accepted belief that spirits might be transferred to water. For instance, among the Assyrians, we find an incantation for a sick man made over a little figure of dough thus: put water upon the man and pour forth the water of the incantation, bring forth a censer and a torch. As the water trickleth away from his body, so may the pestilence in his body trickle away. Return this water to a cup and pour it forth in the broad places, that the broad places may carry away the evil influences which hath brought low strength, are on the tablet of the ban. Like water may they pour it out, like a goblet may they dash it in pieces, like a tile may they break it. Are, in one of the evil spirit text, the evil spirit ghost that appears in, the evil spirit and the ghost that appear in the desert. O pestilence, thou hast touched the man for harm. The tongue that is banefully fastened on the man, may they be broken in pieces like a goblet, may they be poured forth like water. Now, people can speak poetically without praying to the pestilence and that sort of thing. So some of what could be mean, people like to presume that everything that people refer to spiritually are gods and demons and that sort of thing. And it's not that simple of ancient or modern religion, but we like to think we're better nowadays, don't we? The idea of the magician in his exorcism is that the evil spirits have been transferred to the bowl of water, and that when the water has been poured away and the pot broken, all the evil influences will be dissipated. This is the idea in the Maronite rite of baptism. The priest enters the church bearing the child, and after various ceremonies approaches the font and pours water into it, and after lighting a candle, he adjures the evil spirit to depart from the water, that it might be a fountain causing eternal life. After several responsive sentences, he drops 3 drops of tallow in the water, at the same time praying that the Lord may drive out every evil spirit and satanic wile from the water. The rabbinic idea of the soul of a murderer transmigrating to water is the same. They say, the mystical sign of this is indicated in Deuteronomy 12:16. Ye shall pour it upon the earth as water. And the meaning is, he is continually rolling on and on without any rest. Therefore let no man drink from a running tap or spout, but from the hollow of his hands, lest a soul pass into him, and that the soul of a wicked sinner. Okay. I'm not reading out all the titles of the books and stuff that we see mentioned footnote-wise, but that's in the original. But, be aware there are sources. To drink water overnight is one of the things, along with sleeping all night in a cemetery or throwing one's nail parings into the street, which cause a man to sin against himself. If a man drinks water at night, he espouses himself to the power of Shabrevre, the demon of blindness. If he is with someone else, he should say, I am thirsty. But if alone, he must tap on the lid of the jug and address himself by his own name and the name of his mother, saying, Thy mother has bid thee beware of Shabrevre, Brevre, Vrevre, Ivre, Re, in a white cup, on the eves of Wednesday and the Sabbath, sunset Friday, sunset Saturday, between that. One should not drink water except out of white vessels, and after having recited Psalm 29, 3-9, or other magical formula, for it is on those nights that Agrath, Bath, Mahlath, is it Agrat, Bat, Matchlat, is that the Aramea way of saying it, is abroad with her train of 18 myriads of messengers of destruction. You might want to see the Grimorium Verum. I have listed off those numbers before. I was going to do my own version of that text. The Jews of Galicia break a pot or dish in front of a child to drive away the demon of convulsions. And among the Arabs, when any evil is apprehended from a person, it is customary to break a piece of pottery behind his back. The Levitical laws for vessels rendered taboo by the touch of unclean beasts show a parallel. Some are to be put in water, but those of earthenware are to be broken. Now it is to this transference of evils that we must refer the particular custom in vogue at weddings in the East. And, at the risk of diverging from the main subjects of this chapter, for the moment it is worth an examination. A jug of water is placed on the head of the bride at an Arab wedding in Palestine. When she reaches the door of the new house, as a sign of complete submission to her husband, and when she steps into the house, she must call on the name of God as she passes over the lintel, because the Jan live below, and, genie individual. But let's remember that a difference in Islam is, that a woman, there's no only has to obey, not only when it's right, but when it's fair. A husband's required to, she say, hey, that's not fair for me to do. It may not be wrong, but it's not fair. She's has that right. The bridegroom strikes the jug as she passes, throwing it down and breaking it. He also holds a sword over her. According to Spoer, who was present at a wedding in Siloam, the bride put a little leaven to her forehead and fastened some to the doorpost of the new house, entering the home with a water jar on her head, symbolizing her future duties. Surely this is not the proper explanation for so peculiar a custom. The calling on the name of God, the breaking of the pot by the bridegroom, and the prophylactic sword, iron, can only point to an ancient rite of exorcism over the devils who are always ready to attack newly wedded folk by transferring them to the bowl of water with the word of power, then by dispersing them to the destruction of the pot. Among the Yazidis, for instance, the marriage customs seem to throw some additional light on this, where the bride on her arrival at the house of her betrothed is struck by him with a shalala, small stone, symbolizing that she is under her power, that she is under his power, and again by a loaf of bread, signifying that she should be compassionate of the poor. Both these actions are referred to the customs of driving demons away, or perhaps just not the entities that one wants. A lot of these superstitions can be traced back to the Yazidi astrology proper. It's really a 30,000-year-old culture that's gotten new names. A remnant of the jar breaking reappears in the Irani custom of hanging large chandeliers in front of a bridegroom's house, and by breaking a large jar, divert the attention of the spectators, lest an envious eye should cause the chandelier to fall. In the track Kala, it is said by the rabbis that whoever takes drink from the hand of a bride, it is as if he drunk from the hand of a harlot. He who receives a cup from the hands of a bride and drinks therefrom has no portion in the world to come. Sorry about the disruption. I think I can just leave my words as is without repeating anything. Because someone was told that I was recording in here. There are special dispensations allowing fiancés to wash their faces on the Day of Atonement. There is another Assyrian tablet dealing with the laying of ghosts. As usual, long formulae containing the descriptions of all possible apparitions are prescribed, in order that the magician may show that he knows the name of the haunting spirit, a brother's ghost, or a twin, or one unnamed, or with none to pay it right, or one slain by the sword, or one that hath died by fault of entity or sin of king. Column 1, 2, or wait, is that 11? 6 through 8. Are the ghost of anyone unburied, or of a brother, or anything evil. Column 1, 1, 23. The ceremonies appointed for the laying of the spirit are as follows: 7 small loaves of roast corn, the hoof of a dark-colored ox, flour of roast corn, and a little leaven are necessary. Then, after a libation, there is a spell. O ye dead folk, whose cities are heaps of earth, who are sorrowful, why have you appeared unto me? I will not come to Cutha. You are a crowd of ghosts. Why do ye cast your enchantments upon me? The flour and leaven are to be kneaded into a paste in the horn of another ox, and the libation poured into a hole in the earth, just as Gilgamesh pours his offering into the earth when asking a dream. Cutha, in this incantation, is in the underworld. You know, Cutha's an earth entity. You know, chthonic, it occurs in the story of the descent of Ishtar, where the porter of Hades says, "Enter, O lady, let Cutha be glad at." After further ceremonies, the leavened dough is to be placed in the hoof of the first ox, and another libation poured out with an incantation to Shamash. And, okay, when the ghost of a man's father appears, K 2604, K 1293, we have the figure of a dead man in clay, followed by necessary rites, and it's possible to translate R of another evil brother or sister in the place of R of a brother or anything evil. Okay. In the same tablet is a prayer entitled Prayer for when a dead man appeareth unto a living man for evil, to turn him back, that he appear not. The ceremony begins with the following directions. Spin a variegated and a scarlet thread together, and tie 7 knots in it. Thou shalt mix together oil of cedar, spittle of the man, the leavened dough, earth from an old grave, a tortoise's mouth, a thorn, earth from the roots of a caper, earth of ants. Thou shalt sprinkle the knots with this. And when thou tiest them, thou shalt repeat this incantation, and bind it on the temples of the man. Thou shalt tighten it until the darkening of the white part of the face and the whitening of the dark-colored part of the face takes place. And there's a story in an Armenian version of the life of Saint Nino about the childless couple. And a luminous man said to me, Saint Nino, go into the garden, and from the root of the cedar or pine, sapling, by the rose bushes, thou shalt take earth and give it to them to eat in the name of the Lord, and he will give them offspring. With regard to the earth of ants, according to Bocart, it was a custom with the Arabs to place an ant in the hand of a newborn child, with the prayer that he might grow up wise and sagacious. In late Hebrew magic, dust from an ant heap, put into a written charm and hung up in the workshop, brought prosperity in business. Unless they were like carpenter ants or something, right? The latter part of this incantation prescribes that figures of the dead man and the living person to whom the spirit has appeared be made, and libations made before both. Then the figure of the dead man is to be buried in a grave, and that of the living man is to be washed in pure water, thus typifying the burial of the body of the ghost and the cleansing of the living man. The accompanying spell is to be recited. O sun entity, king of heaven and earth, judge of what is above and below, Lord of the dead, ruler of the living, O sun entity, the dead who have risen and appeared, whether the ghost of my father or of my mother or the ghost of my brother or of my sister, let them accept this and leave me free. Then the following ceremony is to be performed in the morning. At early twilight, the kisar must be sprinkled with pure water, and a censer lighted for the sun entity to await him at his rising, burning barasu wood or gum. A libation of sesame wine must be made, and a libation of donkey urine poured forth 3 times. Thus will the dead be stayed. Yet another method is given in the same tablet. When a dead man appeareth unto a living man, thou shalt make a figure of clay, and write his name on the left side with a stylus. Thou shalt put it in a gazelle's horn, and its face, and in the shade of a caper bush, or in the shade of a thorn bush. Thou shalt dig a hole and bury it. And if a man is attacked by a ghost, he is to be anointed with various substances, and the hand of the ghost will be removed. Even the fright from a ghost can be assuaged by certain prayers. And we see mentioned as K 4075 and K 3398. It is among the charges brought against the hostile wizard in the Motlu series that he has made a figure of the enchanted person for whom the health-giving rites are being performed, and has delivered it to a corpse, or allowed it to look at it, or laid it near or on one, or in a grave, or has put the sick man's water by the side of or on a corpse. From these latter texts it will hardly be necessary to adduce further proof that the ancient Assyrians were firmly convinced that they might actually see ghosts, and that there was no doubt that this might happen to any man. Yet, if any more evidence be needed, the Omen tablet of K 8693 will furnish it, which can be compared to S 392, when a ghost gibbers in the house of a man in the middle watch or in the morning watch. Middle of the day or middle of the night? I'm not sure. The morning watch, like dawn to sunrise, I think, is what we're referring to. The text gives a list of the probable occurrences to be expected if a ghost appears in the house of a man. When a ghost appeareth in the house of a man, there will be a destruction of that house. well, if people allow that to be the case, right? When Ditto speaketh, and hearkeneth for an answer, destruction of that house, the man will die, and there will be lamentation. When Ditto standeth over the bed, overthrow of the bed and house. The same thing will happen if it is under the bed. We thus see that it was counted as an evil omen if an apparition showed itself in a house. Either silent or gibbering in expectation of some answer. Further, we now have evidence for the belief among the Assyrians in the ghost which walks at night and comes to the bedside, a universal tradition. There is an interesting parallel to these rites among the Dyaks or Malays of some of the western tribes of Borneo. If one of these natives falls to vomiting, he believes that one of his deceased kinfolk is responsible, and he repairs to a wise man or a wise woman for help. This exorcist pulls out one of his hairs and calls on the names of his dead relatives. The name at which the lock gives forth a sound is the name of the guilty one. And, of course, we know that the Malays that pray to the dead ancestors like this are not Muslim. Now, I'm not saying that their practices that they have outside of these things, but worshipping other than God like this takes a person out of the fold of Islam, so let's not do a popular Islam way of looking at that thing in the way that we can do with Christianity. As long as somebody says that Jesus is Lord, and then they're Christian. The physician, generally an old woman, then says to the ghost, "Go back to your grave. What do you come here for? The soul of the sick man does not choose to be called by you, and will remain yet a long time in its body." Then she puts some ashes from the hearth into a winnowing fan, and molds out of them a small figure or image in a human likeness. 7 times she removes the basket with a little ashen figure up and down before the patient, taking care not to obliterate the figure. At the same time she says, "Sickness, settle in the head, belly, hands, etc." Then quickly pass in the corresponding part of the image, whereupon the patient spits on the image and pushes it from him with his left hand. Next, the beldame lights a candle and goes to the grave of the person whose ghost is doing all the mischief, and throws thereon the figure of ashes, calling out, "Ghost, plague the sick man no longer, and stay in your grave, that he may see you no more." To return to our subject, the departed soul, having seen how great an extent the ancient Semites believed in the individuality of the soul after death, it now remains as a corollary to look into the question of a belief peculiar to savage races, aka people who have deeper thought into religion. The separation of the soul from the human being during life, that is to say, whether the Semites believed at all in the possibility of a man guarding his soul in some other place than his body. On this subject, Fraser, in his discussion of the savage idea, quotes the story of Saif al-Muluk in the Arabian Nights, where the jinn's soul is in the crop of a sparrow, which is in a box, and another box, within 7 boxes, and 7 chests, in a coffer of marble. And, as an oriental parallel, he compares the story of the 2 brothers in Egyptian. The Papyrus de Orbani. Didn't I already talk about this on the Egyptian list at least once? I believe I did. The 2 brothers story. Yeah, I did. For other examples among the Semites, we may mention a Syrian Arab story. I don't think the Syrians are, as if you call it Arabians, a particular brown skin race, that's okay. Anyways, where a princess Hisson, where a princess Hisson says to a Jew, "I beg of you, tell me where your soul is, so that I and it may be company for each other during the day. He said to her in a wooden lock of the door. She put a bunch of flowers on the door and began to act as though she was talking with it. The Jew came in the evening and saw the door decorated. He said to her, "What, are you crazy?" She said to him, "I beg of you, where is your soul?" He said to her, "In the broom." She began to laugh at him, so that he would think she loved him. The third day she said to him, "I beg of you, tell me where your soul is." He told her that his soul was inside some cotton in a little box in the foot of a lame gazelle. She said to him, "How shall I get it?" He replied, "By means of 3 hairs from my beard." The story of Samson guarding his strength in his hair seems to have something in keeping with this belief. And another passage in the Old Testament, Ezekiel 13:18, is noteworthy. Getting rumbly and tumbly. Woe to the women that sew pillows upon all elbows, and make kerchiefs for the head of persons of every stature to hunt souls. The Tawiz. Did we talk about the Tawiz? The Arabic version. According to Islamic tradition, the soul of Adam had been created thousands of years before the making of his clay body, and it at first refused to enter its human dwelling. At last, God forced it violently through Adam's nose, which caused him to sneeze. Well, that's actually not quite recorded right. It's that Adam sneezed and Adam didn't know what was going on. And it's told to seek praise to God. And the response, "Upon you be mercy." But if somebody doesn't say it, you say, "May God guide you." Anyways, in Assyrian there is an incantation directing the sorcerer: bind the head of the sick man, and bind the neck of the sick man, and bind the soul or life of the sick man. The remark of an old Fijian chief that a newborn child is scarcely a human being as its spirit has not yet come to it is very suggestive in this connection. We have now to turn on the second class of spirits, those that are entirely inhuman and supernatural. They exist in the fertile imagination of the Semites in countless hordes, and their names are legion. And as it is impossible to compare accurately the roles of each separate demon in the respective Semitic languages, the best will be to examine the characteristics of each successfully. Now, okay, we got a very small book. The books like the Gahtaya, to give it a Greek pronunciation, the Grimorium Verum and such, I found represent categories of demons, not so much. Again, taking Assyrian as the base, the first matter that lies before us in the oft-repeated line, Utukku limnu alu, limnu etimu, limnu galu, limnu elu, limnu rabissu, limnu. Evil spirit, evil demon, evil ghost, evil devil, evil entity, evil fiend. The etimu, as we've already dealt with, the alu belongs to the third class, being half human, and the evil entity yields but little more than its self-contained idea, so that we have to treat of the utuku, the galu, and the rabissu. The utuku is, once at least, used of the wraith of a dead man coming back to earth, but it's not easy to say where the difference lies between it and the etimu. But from the fact that we find it only once, with certainty, taking the place of the etimu, we shall probably be right in ascribing to it a far wider scope. It was certainly a spirit that lurked in the desert, kind of like the stories of ghouls, which Islam does not believe in. that the spirits that physically hurt people, because the power of the satanic spirits is in the human being believing in them, even to the point of psychosomatically hurting themselves. The common home of many Semitic devils lying in wait for man, or it might have had its home in the mountains, sea, or graveyard, and evil would befall him on whom it merely cast its eye. The following text describes the province of a spirit whose name is unfortunately lost through a break in the tablet. It is possible, however, that it is the Utuku, or if Utuku is the evil spirit robbeth and roameth over the land, the evil spirit which shroudeth the land as with a garment, the evil spirit which against the man angry. The evil spirit is a devil which heareth not. The Syrian uses a ditto sign. Oh, we're continuing further. The evil spirit is a devil which hath no shame. The evil spirit is a devil which spawneth evilly. The evil spirit which bringeth woe on the land. The evil spirit which hunteth over the land. The evil spirit which chaseth living beings. The evil spirit is a pestilence which, the hand. The evil spirit which fiercely hunteth the land. The evil spirit which fiercely raiseth trouble in the land. The evil spirit which receiveth not. The evil spirit which draweth up the little ones like fish from the water. The evil spirit which casteth down the elders. The evil spirit which striketh gray-haired old men and women. The Galu is sexless. It is a word used in the classical Assyrian as a term of abuse, being used by Sennacherib to describe the hostile Babylonians in the phrase Gali Limnutia, evil devils. The Rabisu, as its name implies, is the lurking demon which sets the hair of the body on end, just as in Job 4:15, that a spirit passed before my face, the hair on my flesh stood up. This lurker may be compared to the Syriac Bar Agara, a demon who sat on the roof and jumped on the man as he came out of the house. The man is so afflicted, being known as the Bar Agara. And we have Daman lunaris quia quovius mensis lunaralis initio luno exagitur necnon is quia a luna ad lunam crucibitur a damane quia vem cruciabat. Syriac thing. I heard an Arab explaining how he could tell whether a black man was a demon or not. The hair would stand upon